fellow bookworms, to Tibera's Den. My name is Whitney, and we are reading Stormfront by Jim Butcher. So we just finished up the first set of chapters this past week. That is what we are discussing today. If you aren't quite caught up, don't hesitate to jump off this video and come back once you have gotten caught up. We are discussing these chapters and these characters, and so there is a certain level of spoilers. And then, of course, if you haven't started yet, it is never too late. Links are in the description below of where you can pick up the book, and then also the breakdown of the chapters as we're reading them. But if you come across this video at a later date, you can, of course, participate at any time by picking up the book and then following along these videos with each set of chapters. So I definitely encourage you to go ahead and read this with us. As I mentioned before, it is a reread for me, and so I hope if you have already read it that you will still participate and reread it again and then join in on the discussion questions. But really excited. I don't really remember it. I thought maybe starting to read it I would, start to remember a little bit more, but I'm just as clueless as before. Like, the words are familiar, but I have no clue what happens, so I'm really excited to get into this and then continue on with the series. And on that note, we finished up Nora Roberts' Legacy. You can see my final thoughts on this channel, and so you can find that. I'll try to link that in the description below as well. And then the final discussion questions are up over on my website. So if you want to participate in the final discussion questions, you can do that. And I do have my answers over there in video form as well, but that will be exclusive to my website. So if you want to see the final discussion and then my answers, head on over to tiberasden.com. But that will be linked in the description below. Let's go ahead and get right into the discussion questions for Stormfront. Of course, we are starting with Chapter 1. Harry has trouble with people taking him seriously. Even if you believe in the supernatural, how skeptical would you be of a professional wizard? And I would be extremely skeptical. I think just because it's so taboo. So even if you believe in that stuff, like, wizards and supernatural beings, they keep themselves hidden. So to see someone, outright advertising that they are a wizard or anything like that, I think would definitely give me pause. Now, if it was a little bit more widely accepted, not so much. But like I said, it is still kind of, even those who believe you don't really talk about it. It's not part of everyday life. And so if I saw somebody advertising as a professional wizard, I would definitely be like, are you really though? Because I would expect an actual wizard to kind of keep it hidden and keep it to themselves. But that's just my thoughts on it. Harry distrusts electronics, as do many of the older generations. How hard is it to avoid electronics in today's society? So this book, like I said, it is older, and I believe it was released in 2000. And so electronics were definitely not near what they were today, especially like cell phones and things like that. And so, like, even now you go to the grocery store and a lot of it is electronic and things like that. So I think, in today's society, it's definitely really hard. Like, I know some people that aren't as into it and kind of want to stay off the grid, but it's hard because you got to go to the store, things like that. So it really is hard to kind of stay away from electronics. And like I said, even if you're not personally using them that often, you have to do things that involve them in everyday life. And so I think it'd be extremely difficult. He already has trouble with like cars and regular phones, not let alone cell phones. Elevators and things like that kind of wonk out on him. And so I think just walking in general, and then the people around you be like, what's going on, so I think it'd be really hard in today's society to kind of try to stay away from anything electronic, for sure. And that's it for Chapter 1. Let's go ahead and move on to Chapter 2. People have trouble looking Harry in the eye. Do you think he would fit in better if this wasn't the case? And so I'm actually autistic, and eye contact is kind of a stereotypical thing with us, and I know I struggle with it. And I kind of enjoy this book because it's not him avoiding eye contact, it's the rest of the society, like people he's interacting with that are avoiding eye contact. But at the same time, it's still kind of expected, and so it makes them extremely uncomfortable, because they want to make eye contact, but they just, with him, it makes them uncomfortable. And so I think he would, like, if people were able to make eye contact with him, I think it would allow him to fit in, even advertising that he's a wizard. I think it would just make people a little bit more comfortable. But the fact that they're uncomfortable making eye contact with him just kind of makes him even more of an outcast for sure. So, if Harry wasn't a wizard but still retained all his knowledge, would he still be able to consult for the police? And I think he would. Like, I don't think, just reading the first 5 chapters, and kind of the scene where he's consulting, um, I don't think a lot of his skills are just kind of natural skills, and then his expertise is kind of what they're utilizing, like his expertise in the supernatural. So if he still had that expertise and not the rest of his skills, I think, you know, observational skills and such, why it is like a kind of a talent, I think he could have that without being a wizard. Because police often they have to observe things and catch little things as well. And as I think it's Carmichael kind of pointed out, like a lot of it is kind of deductive reasoning. And he's kind of a skeptic, and I think he's correct in some ways. Like, yeah, that's, you can deduce that. And so yeah, I think he could still be like an expert consultant, even if he wasn't actually a wizard. So that was kind of my thoughts on it. And we're going to go ahead and move on to chapter 3. Johnny Marcone is introduced as someone that holds a position of power. Why is he spending time to pay Harry, trying to pay Harry to do nothing? And I'm really not even sure on this one because it doesn't really make sense to me. Because to me, if he really didn't believe in Harry's skills, he probably just wouldn't waste time. But if he does believe that Harry has some skills, then I would think he would want to kind of recruit him to work for him and pass him information versus just kind of, hindering the police completely. Which I get, he's obviously don't want the police involved, but they're still going to be involved regardless whether Harry is or not. And I know Harry kind of does the soul gaze or whatever it's called. And so, he kind of sees that Johnny Marcone wants to handle it himself. And he's going to take care of it. Like, he is angry about the murder. But I don't know. I think, to me, like, either just ignore Harry, or if you think he can figure it out, then utilize him. Like, why would you waste money and time trying to convince him to just do nothing? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like I said, I'm sure it has something to do, with the book itself, but I don't remember what happens. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. After soul gazing with Marcone, Harry describes him as solid, merciless, cool, and controlled. Why is this scarier than someone who is fueled by emotions? And I think it's, there's a certain humanity to emotions, and so oftentimes you can kind of tap into that when dealing with somebody who's, fueled by emotions. Where with Marcone, you don't have that. Like, you have to kind of rely on logic and reasoning, and if your views don't match up, that's going to be difficult to kind of sway him one way or another. So I think just not having that emotion kind of lacks humanity, and lacks that edge that you have when dealing with someone like that. And so I think it can be really scary dealing with somebody who doesn't have emotions, because you can't kind of, like I said, tap into that. And I know, like, when he's doing the soul gaze, he sees something that Marcone regrets, but he can't quite grasp what it is. And just that control and not letting anything influence you makes it really difficult, I think. So, and the next chapter is chapter 4. Monica is nervous around Harry. Have you ever had someone assume or dismiss something about you because of stereotypes? And so I do, or I have. I think for me, one, I'm obviously overweight, and I think especially doctors, they kind of dismiss anything that's going on. They just attribute it to my weight, so they assume that. I remember, kind of personal information, but my I have to take vitamin D3 supplements, and I had to battle so hard to get her to run tests. Like, she checked my thyroid and that was normal. And everything, like, I had to battle. I think she was just thinking, well, you're just overweight and so you're tired, and that wasn't it at all. And so I have had people assume that, or I can't be as active. I've hiked with like friends, and oh wow, you do better than I thought you would, and things like that, which is kind of hurtful. But like I said, they just assume that because I'm overweight, I'm just lazy, or things like that. And then also with being autistic, I haven't run into it too much, where other women are often dismissed. I was just diagnosed this year, and so I didn't, nobody acknowledged that for a very long time. And when I was kind of trying to figure out what was going on, I did have people say to me, well, those are all, everybody has traits, like that. Like, everybody's a little autistic, and things like that, which is like, you're missing the point, and so they kind of dismissed that I was my struggling, and that I was struggling, because, well, everybody's a little autistic, or everybody has autistic traits, and it's like, no, but it's different, like, yes, everybody can have some traits that are similar, but it's kind of the how they all combine and how they affect you that makes it autism, so I don't know. So I've had it, both ways, people assuming things and people just kind of dismissing it as well. So, and then Monica thinks magic may have played a part in her husband going missing. How dangerous can it be to meddle in something you don't understand? I think it can be really, really dangerous because you don't understand all the consequences that can come, from your actions when you're doing something that you don't have any knowledge in. And so I think that, can definitely be very, very dangerous. Because you just don't know, you don't know what you don't know. And so I think it's important, when trying something new, or especially if there's a certain dangerous component to it, that you do get the information you need, and you maybe work with somebody who has the knowledge that you don't, for sure. So, last chapter is chapter 5. Among other things to help with the supernatural energy, McAnally's utilizes, I don't know if I said that right, but utilizes the number 13. Why is this? And I think, even if you aren't very superstitious, like, a lot of people, like, 13 holds a lot of power, and I'm sure, that it has a specific significance to the supernatural that I just don't know. But regardless, I think there is a certain power that 13, whether, 13, I personally find lucky, where my husband, who's not very superstitious, finds it unlucky. He hates Friday the 13th. And so I think there is a certain power to the number 13. And I think that kind of adds to the atmosphere of the writing, um, of, of the bar or pub or whatever you want to call it. So I think there's a certain power to it, but I do think it probably has a certain significance for the supernatural. Like I said, that I don't know. So we are introduced to Susan. What is it about her that throws Harry off? And besides the obvious attraction, he mentions that, I think part of it is her confidence. He mentions that when they first met, she, knowing, about wizards and stuff, chose to do the soul gaze, and she did pass out from it, but I think that's part of it. And then, I think also part of it is he knows that she affects him. And because she's a reporter, he's aware that he kind of fumbles around her, and then he's trying extra hard not to, let something slip because she is a reporter. And so it just kind of makes it worse, I think, is why she affects him so much. There's definitely layers of it, of why she does, the attraction to her, and he's really not kind of used to that. And then just her personality and her confidence, and then her being a reporter, especially knowing how she affects him and wanting to make sure he doesn't slip up. I think all kind of combine um, together to cause him to really kind of fumble around her. But that is it for the questions. I only did 2 questions for each chapter. These chapters aren't very long, and so I'm probably going to keep it to 2 questions going forward, but it just kind of depends on the chapters and how much content is in them. So that is it for today. I hope you are enjoying this book like I am, or if you haven't started it yet and you're still watching this video, that you will pick it up and get it started. But it is really good. Remember, we are going to be reading chapters 6 through 11 this coming week, and we will discuss that next Monday. So happy reading, everyone. Bye.